Hello! I wanted to talk about another game, and this time it's Legends of Heroes Trails of Cold Steel Part 1. Legends of Heroes Trails of Cold Steel is a JRPG with tactical battles, just like every other game in this series. I have already talked about the game series, and I talked about Trails in the Sky the Third as an example. This game is the start of the third chapter of a long ongoing story, and previous we had 5 very good games with great characters, great story and great world building overall. Everything was pretty awesome. Maybe the graphics were a little dated, but frankly I can live with that. While Trails in the Sky played in the land Liberl and the two-parter Trails from Zero to Azure played in the city-state of Crossbell, Cold Steel plays in the Empire of Erebonia. An empire inspired by the German Empire, which was founded in 1871 and came to its end at the end of the First World War 1918. There is also a Blood and Iron Chancellor in Erebonia who is controlling the civil government, and that's a nod to German Iron Chancellor Otto von Bismarck from the times of the old German Empire. There's also a huge conflict between the nobles and the commoners in this empire, because the commoners gain more and more political power. There is a civil government as mentioned, but the regions in Erebonia are still governed by 4 great houses of nobles, and they have the real political power. They have their own armies. It's all overseen by the Emperor himself. Trails of Cold Steel gives us new improved graphics. Instead of an overhead view, we are now in third person. That's not the only thing they changed. But not every change is an improvement. Let's start with the stuff they didn't change, the equipment. We still get an armory slot, shoes and 2 accessory slots for trinkets we mainly use to avoid status effects like poison, stun, stuff like that. Every character has his unique weapon type, and we get better items for these slots in every new chapter, which we can buy and sometimes find in a chest. The magic system received a major hit. Gone are the times where you would tinker around with your stones to get the spells you want while upgrading your stats. Now you get a Master's Quartz, which will level up with you and will give you extra spells. You also have to directly put a certain spell in a socket, which means you got to choose healing spell or higher stats. That didn't work out all that well, and instead of rolling back to the old system, we can see the developers' attempts to improve the system over time. In the end, it still feels a lot worse and gives the player less options. We still have the crafts, the special attacks that need CP. Ever since the first game, they have been more and more generous with the craft points. We are almost at a point where we can just spam these crafts. A new feature is the link system. Here 2 characters are linked together, and if one of them hits critical in a fight, you can have the options to hit the opponent with the linked character or spend some points for an even stronger attack. These links can also be developed over time. With a higher link level, extra things can happen, like giving cover for your link partner or even trigger a death blow. We also get a new feature in this game, the bonding points. For some reason the developers thought, instead of having meaningful relationships and story-driven character moments, we need to press the stop button every chapter and give the protagonist a chance to talk to a few people and have some character moments with them. This is limited by the bonding points we get, so we can't do this with every character. This might have been the worst change, since it really hinders the narrative to unfold and it's not beneficial for character developments. Now let's have a short look at the characters. And another big mistake was made here by the game developers. They dropped 9 characters total from the get-go on us. My guess would be players were completely overwhelmed by this and they learned from that mistake, since every follow-up game introduces and reintroduces the characters much more smoothly. Here they are all dropped and we get to know them little by little, and sometimes we never get to know enough of them. We get noble Jusius and Machias who have the rivalry the whole land of Erebonia has, and they do it inside the group to explain to the player the servity of this. Biggest letdown character-wise is the protagonist himself. He's bland, spineless, at the same time a leader and a pushover. Wayne Schwarzer is a bit of a disgrace after 3 unique and very interesting main characters. Every protagonist so far had his hopes, dreams, motivations. Estelle wanted to be a bracer and live up to the example her parents gave her. Clumsy at first, but it was already there at the start. Lloyd worked hard to be a detective and follow the footsteps of his deceased big brother. And Kevin also had someone to live up to, and coming to terms how to do that was his character arc in Trails in the Sky Desert. Wayne doesn't seem to want anything. He knows his limitations, but doesn't know how or bother to overcome them. Very early in this game he isn't standing up for himself after an incident with a teammate in the first dungeon, which was clearly an accident, and he should have clarified that and move on. He seems to have no goals in life and never shows any kind of appropriate reactions to almost anything that goes on around him. While you might say, come on, that's a typical teenager, the fact remains he just isn't main character material. I think Cold Steel as a whole is dragged down by him quite a bit. Navigating through the menus with the keyboard is a complete and utter mess. I don't know why this happened, but it was done way better in Trails from Zero, where we can just point and click with our mouse. Here the mouse is only used to move the camera. It's really hard to understand what happened. The system for the tactical fights is still the same. You can set up your tactical formation and then get the usual options in the fight. Move, attack, use arts or crafts. After 5 great games, the Cold Steel series still consists of 4 good games overall. As I said, I haven't found a bad Falcom game yet, but story and characters are weaker than in the 5 games before, and even the world building seems a little off here, but eventually gets better in parts 3 and 4. If you played through the first 5 games, this is a must play. If you didn't, don't start with this one, even though the graphics might be more appealing. We have reached a point where quite some stuff can go over your head without the knowledge of the previous games. And while this part doesn't have that much of references and old characters in it, starting Cold Steel 3, you will be lost at quite a few points.
Don't you think that was kind of overkill?
No such thing!